My name's Scott. I am the Uncensored Chef. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you haven't read on the social media, or if you didn't happen to join us for our Tuesday cooking stream, that's right, we're doing another cooking stream every week. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, and starting next week, we're actually going to try it at an earlier time. We're going to try it at 7 o'clock instead of 8 to try and get a few more people out on the East Coast available to jump into the stream. So, if you didn't join us last time, and if you haven't checked it out on social media, tonight we are making one of my personal favorites. This is a soup that I've made in every restaurant I've worked in. It goes over incredibly well. Everybody I know that's tried it has absolutely loved it. Obviously, if you like pickles, you have to like pickles to like this soup because it's very pickly. We're making dill pickle soup, and then to go along with that, we are making some buttermilk biscuits. And these buttermilk biscuits, I won't tell you till later, but they are celebrity endorsed. I'll tell you who a little bit later. I'll tell you a little story. So, the first thing we are going to do is we're going to start making some soup. Now, this soup is very simple to make. It's all about layering some flavors and having just the right amount of thickener, as well as a touch of sour cream when you put the broth in here to really bring out a velvety richness. Now, I have the base of my ingredients in front of me here. Now, you might be asking me what's going on over here. So I happen to have a purple carrot. We just happen to have them in the fridge, and I thought, you know what? This is going to add a little funky color to it. Hopefully it stains the actual broth a little bit, but we're going to go and do a little bit of purple carrot. So it's 1 onion, a single carrot. I'm using 2 center stalks of celery. I really like the center of the stalks. It gives it a little bit more sweetness. It's a little bit more of a light flavor. And then we are using right here, I've got 6 medium-sized standard dill pickles. Now, this soup utilizes both pickles and pickle brine as a flavoring ingredient. So we're also going to use 50% of our liquid volume is going to be pickle juice. So today we're using 1 liter of liquid. So we're going to do half a liter of pickle brine. We're doing half a liter of chicken stock, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I've just started my pan on here, and all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add just a very small amount of oil, because we're going to add a little bit more fat later to work the thickening process. So I'm just going to add barely a teaspoon of oil in there. Now the first thing we're going to get to is we're going to do this onion. So really how big or small the dice is completely up to you. Personally, I recommend going a little on the finer side, because then every single time you take a scoop out of your soup, you're going to get a little bit of everything in that spoon. So we're going to go a little on the finer side, and this is kind of what I would do if I was making this in the restaurant. So we are just going to run our knife through here, nice channels as wide as we want to make our dice. We're just going to go all the way down without going all the way through the onion, so we hold it at the base. And then we are just going to run your knife through, and you're going to let the knife do all the cutting. Just let the weight go straight through and all the way down. So that's 1 half. And now we're going to do the other half here. So exactly the same thing. Run your knife down channels nice and thin so you get a really nice finer dice. All the way through your onion, leaving the bottom intact. And again, just run your knife through the onion. Let the weight of your knife take care of all the dirty work. And then we're going to get right down to the end there. And then I always just take the last little bit there, and we're just going to dice up the last little bit of that onion so we get everything all in there and there's no waste, except for obviously the outer paper and the root end. So now that we have all of our onion in there, now it does look like a lot of onion, but remember, we are only going to bring this to a sweet render stage. We're not going to caramelize this, so it's not going to be an incredibly strong forward flavor. So we're just going to take this, and this is going to go directly into our pot. So the nice thing about this is if you are ready to cook, you can process your vegetables in time as you need to add them, because we do have to add them in fairly specific stages. So right now, we've got our onion in here, and we're going to start that to sweat. Now, we don't want to go for a full caramelization because we do want to keep all the vegetables pretty clean in our soup, so we're just going to let that sweat down. And we're going to move on to, we're going to move on to the carrot. So, I've already peeled our carrot, So we're just going to take off that root end and a touch of the tip. Now I absolutely love purple carrots for the way they look. So I cut my carrot in half. Obviously one side is bigger than the other. This just makes it a little bit easier for me to dice it. We're going to take a slice off the top and turn our carrot so it's on a flat surface. Now it's not going to roll on us. We can go again down that same size. We can make ourselves nice little chunks here, and we're going to do the exact same thing with the larger size. Take the one piece off, go onto the flat side, cut 4 even strips all the way down, and then it's as simple as making channels within these segments as large, once again, as you want your dice. Now once again, I'm going to reiterate that personally, I like to try and keep everything very similar in size, so that when you go in for a big spoonful of that soup, you're going to get a little bit of everything in every single spoonful. And I think that's very important, especially in soup, because the whole idea is to make sure that all these flavors meld together and nothing really stands out. It kind of becomes this beautiful pot of wonderment. And this is just one more way to accentuate that by having everything the same size, and it's all going to cook the same. So we have our very thin julienne sticks. I'm just going to move my onions around a little bit just to make sure they sweat and don't caramelize. So we're just going to get those going. And that tiny little bit of oil has now been picked up by those onions, so we don't have anything left in the pot, which is perfect because we're going to thicken this with a little bit of a roux later, which is very simple. So again, we're going to take this now. We're just going to take our knife, and we're just going to run it through the approximate thickness that you want your dice. Now again, how big, how small, how consistent? If you want to go rustic, hey man, put all these on your board, just start chopping, go for it, make it really rustic, nice big chunks, almost like a stew. But for me, unfortunately, it's been drilled into my head for so long, sometimes it's hard to do the rustic thing. I love it, I try to do it as often as possible, but for today we're going to go a little on the fancy side. So, our onions are half sweat right now, so you can kind of see right into there. We're just about to turn opaque. So, this is the perfect time to get our carrot bits in here. So once again, we're just going to take those, we're going to drop all those directly into our soup. And we're just going to move those around, and we're going to start to let those sweat a little bit and start to pull the sweetness of the carrot out into the onion. So, this is all cooking nicely. Looks delicious, smells really good already, because there's nothing better than roasting a few onions. So now we're going to move on to the celery. Now, personally, I am a very big fan of celery leaves. I think they are incredibly delicious and a very underutilized product. So what I will do is I will knock the top of the celery off, especially because I'm using a tender inside piece. Then all we're going to do is we're going to use the channel, and we're going to basically dictate the size and how many cuts we do based on the size of our stock. So the first one is always going to be right down the middle to split us in two. This one we're going to go one on each side to give us 4 segments on there. The larger one here, once again, we're going to go right down the center. This one we're going to do 3 segments on each side so we can get an approximate same size. And we're going to do kind of 1.5 on this size because of the shape. Just like so. So I'm going to dice this stuff up a little separately. And again, we're going to go with that same size that we went with our carrot and with our onion. So again, we're going to get this really great combination of the flavors and textures because everything's going to be cooked the same, it's going to be the same size, and it's going to be very pleasant to eat. And we're not quite ready to add that in, but boy does that ever smell good. That's the one thing you will notice. Once you start using celery tenders, the inner leaves, you're really going to notice the natural sweetness is really going to present itself whenever you cut them. There's a lot more sugar at the inside of the celery. It's wonderful, and it's something that a lot of people pass up on. Now the tops. Like I said, I'm going to leave these leaves on. So really all we're going to do is we're going to split this top straight in half like that, and the same with this one. Just so that top stem, well, that's a really nice leafy one, that's going to be really tasty. We get in there, we're just going to split that right in half. Now the reason I did this one, these two separately is because I'm going to go a lot finer on this because I want the leaves to really kind of disappear and blend into the actual soup. So we're going to start on the leaf side, and we're going to chop this almost like we were chiffonading basil, or if we were chopping a little bit of parsley. So we're just going to keep running our knife all the way down. Just keep cutting all that, and we can bunch this all back up, roll it over a little bit, and just continue to chop that really nice and finely with our knife until we get all the way down to that nice fine stem. And again, those stem pieces, we want them about that same size. So now we have our celery. Two very different versions of celery that blend really nicely once you get it all into the soup. So now that we've taken the time to do the extra cutting on this, we're ready to pop this right into the soup. So once again, that's just going to go right in there. Adds a really nice pop color at this point. And now we're just going to stir this around. Now because we have this on just above a medium-high heat, we don't have to worry too much about burning. And now we can get that in there. So these celery leaves are going to wilt pretty quickly, just like any kind of leafy green. And the celery itself doesn't take too long to cook. So once you put that in there, we can get right into the pickles. Now, these are just simply store-bought. Obviously, if you have homemade, use your homemade pickles. As long as they are sours. Sweet pickles don't really quite work for this recipe. So really all we're going to do is we're going to take our pickle, split it right in half, flip it over to the flat side, and these pickles, we are going to give 3 cuts on that one, 4 on that one. Really, it's going to depend on how you cut your pickle and how big you want the actual size in the spoon. So we're going for a little bit of a finer cut. So we're going to run a bunch of channels through there, and then we're going to dice these up. So the pickle itself for this soup, I will keep a little bit larger than everything else because it is the star of this soup. You are making dill pickle soup after all. So we're just going to cut all these guys up, get everything chopped up, and we're going to get this stuff right into the soup as soon as it's ready to go. Now, personally, I don't remember where I picked up this recipe. I don't remember when. I don't remember who gave it to me or where it came from. But I know I've been making it probably for at least 12 or 15 years. And it seems everywhere I make it, people kind of look at me funny the first time. They go, "You're making what?" And then I go, "I'm making dill pickle soup. Don't knock it till you try it." No, all right, we'll try it. And then inevitably, I make it, and we put some out for the serving staff to try it. And everybody goes, "Where has this been all my life?" It is not as sour as you're going to think it is. It has a velvety texture that almost feels like you blended potato into the soup itself. But it also has a lightness to it because you're not overloading it with any kind of heavy meats, and it doesn't have any potatoes or anything in it. So really, it ends up being one of these soups that, fortunately, you can make year-round. You can make it in summer like we have beautiful temperatures right now. If you make this in fall, add a little bit of spice into it and really kind of crank up the flavor. It's incredible. All right. So, pickles are there. Give that one last stir. And now these guys are going to go right in here. Now, the one thing about putting all of that moisture in there is you're going to start to deglaze immediately upon putting those pickles in there. It is going to release enough moisture that is going to pick up the caramelization, the little bit that happened off the bottom of the pot, and it's really going to start working itself around. So we're going to get this nice and stirred up in here. Really get that off the bottom and turned around. Now, at this point in time, all we have left to do is just allow that pickle, that initial moisture release. We just want to let it go a little bit just so the pickle releases a little bit of the water into the actual mix before we start adding the rest of our ingredients. The reason I like to do that is because now we can control our moisture content. You can evaporate out some of that little extra moisture, especially because we are going to build a thickening roux on top of this. So, now that this is going for a minute or two here, we have most of that moisture initially has released. Smells like pickles and onions. It smells delicious. Now we're going to go into the next step, and now we're going to thicken, and we're going to prepare the broth. So what I have here are equal parts salted butter and all-purpose flour. This is my container of half chicken stock, half pickle liquid. And I have about I'm going to say a half cup of sour cream. Now the sour cream is really kind of the secret ingredient to this whole thing. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to start by preparing the roux. So the first thing that's going to go in is we're going to take the butter. We're going to pop that right into the bottom, and we're going to just allow that to start to melt. Now, as that melts, obviously it's going to release all that beautiful fat inside. There we go, a little more light. So we're getting all the fat in there. We're letting all that move around. Now, equal amounts all-purpose flour. Now this is where the real thickening magic happens. So we are building a very simple, straightforward roux. Equal parts fat and flour. And then all we're going to do is we're going to mix all that around. So all that gets picked up. And you don't see any white flecks left, and all that flour is cooking out. Because the last thing you want is to find a nugget of uncooked flour even after you cook out your soup. And believe me, it can happen. So, now that we have that in there, and we're looking really good and cooked out, now it's time to add our broth. So we're going to take our broth, which is half chicken stock and half pickle brine. We're going to add just a little bit at the very beginning to just start our roux, just to pick it up a little bit here. Now, as this thickens, and as that picks up, we're going to start to see it boil off and see that moisture. We're going to see it kind of all kinds of thick and delicious. So we're going to add a little bit more brine, a little bit more stock. We're just going to add a little bit at a time. We don't want to overload this. We do not want to put all of our stock in there all at the same time. And at this point in time, I'm going to crank this all the way up to high, because we want to get this up to a really nice boil before we turn it down to a really, really sexy simmer. So we're going to get that just kind of going. As we're going to watch, you are going to watch this happen right in front of you. As the flour and the butter cook together with the moisture, it's going to start to thicken. This is the base of this soup, is that it's not a cream reduction. It's not anything super heavy like that. It's all based on this style of soup making. So now we're going to add a good chunk more, about half the last of it. And again, we're just going to stir this around. And we're just going to bring it back up to temperature. And then we're going to add the last of our stock and our sour cream. And we're going to get this rolling. So, at this point in time, we are coming back up. So I'm going to take the last of my stock and pickle brine. We're going to add that directly into there. Get that out of the way. And last but not least, we're going to take this sour cream and we're going to mix it directly into the soup. Just like so. And that's going to add our creaminess. That's going to add the richness to this soup. It's also going to kind of complete the Ukrainian flair on this. So at this point in time, we aren't going to add any kind of seasoning to this soup whatsoever because of the pickles and because of the pickle brine. You know you're going to have a good salt value. What we're going to do is we're going to allow this to come up to a full boil, let it roll for about 30 seconds, turn it down to a really nice sexy simmer, throw a lid on it. We're just going to let this simmer away, and while we do that, we get to make biscuits. So that's a beautiful part about this. is that it gives you enough time, because this biscuit recipe, let me tell you something, is deceptively easy. It takes very little time, and it doesn't require a ton of ingredients or effort. So we are coming up to that boil point, and as you can see, you're getting the nice little bubbles moving around just right in there. And yeah, so that's going to kind of come up. We're going to get that really nice to a nice simmer, and then we're going to turn that right down. So let's just stir this around one more time here. Get that going. Oh, that smells and looks delicious. Now, the nice thing about this too is with using those celery leaves, it almost kind of looks like you added cabbage in here for a little bit of extra Ukrainian deliciousness. But obviously we didn't, so that's just celery leaves in there. So we're going to put a lid on that, and we're going to keep an eye. So the second it comes up to a boil, we're going to turn it down to a simmer. Now, next part. Personally, my favorite part about what we're doing tonight, this is one of my absolute favorite recipes. I put so much time and effort into researching and finding this recipe and scaling it and figuring it out to the point where it works beautifully. This biscuit recipe is incredibly simple. We're using, what here, 2, 4, 6 ingredients. It's all about technique, but it's also about simplicity. Now, I did mention earlier that this was a celebrity endorsed recipe. So the story behind that. A couple years ago, I was lucky enough to work in our arts district here in Edmonton, down off White Avenue, and every year they have an amazing festival here called the Fringe. And our Fringe Festival draws people from around the world. I'm just going to stop real quick. We're just going to take that lid off just real quick. We're going to turn it down to very low heat. I'm just going to give that a very quick stir, just to disperse everything in there really nicely. And now we're just going to let that go. So I'm going to put that lid on, not fully closed. We're going to let some of that steam escape so it thickens up really nicely. So that's good there. Anyway, so I was lucky enough to work within in the arts area and our Fringe Festival. And like I said, it draws international attention. And one of the performers that came happened to be the voice of one of my favorite characters in an amazing show called Archer. Her name is Amber Nash, and she voices the great character Pam Poovey. If you've ever watched the show, she's the most ridiculous person in the show. She's one of my favorite characters of probably all time in cartoons. And she's just a genuinely great human being. She came over to the restaurant I was working at. We had a great chat. The next year she came back, she reached out to me saying, hey, I'm doing a play. I want to give some biscuits because it's a Southern influenced play. At the end of the play, can you help me out? And I said, absolutely. So my mom and I ended up making, I believe it was 12 dozen of these biscuits for her to give out to every single person at the end of her Sunday night show. And after the first one, she did 2 of them. After the first one, she was very happy when I gave her a big bag of her own with some homemade jam. So they come with a big thumbs up from her from a couple years ago. So let's get into this recipe. It's incredibly easy. The biggest thing you really need is some kind of food processor. This right here is going to make this entire process a lot more simple. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our dry ingredients. So I have 200, I just want to make sure I get my number right, 283 grams of all-purpose flour. I have 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of baking powder. Now I know that doesn't seem like a lot of baking powder for baking powder biscuits, but trust me, it's definitely enough. Now the key to this is the process that we're going to go through right now. So what we're going to start with is we're going to take our flour, and we are going to get that right into our food processor. We are then going to take both our baking powder and our salt and sugar. We're going to put those directly in there. And now we're very quickly just going to put our lid back on here, give that a snap, and we're going to pulse this very quickly just to incorporate our dry goods. Now, this is the most important part of this entire process. the butter. This is half a cup unsalted cubed butter right out of the fridge. This is ice cold. It's not quite frozen, but it's as close as we can get. That is the most important part when doing your biscuits, because this is what gives it the air. This is what brings life into your biscuits, is having nice cold butter. So what we're going to do, we're going to open this guy up. We're going to take our butter. We're going to feed it in here kind of all the way around. And we're going to pulse this butter directly into our dry goods, which is going to give us a really nice incorporation of the butter. It's going to make these little pearly balls of flour and dry goods covered the butter, and it's going to kind of keep it intact when we mix the buttermilk together. So all we're going to do is we're going to take the pulse, for about 20 seconds. Give that a quick shake. And there you go. The butter itself is all been incorporated in there. And it's still nice and chunky in there, but it's all in there. That's the most important part. So, next up, we can put, oh, that's not supposed to be there. We can take our dry goods into our bowl, directly in. That's good to go. Now, next step, some buttermilk. Now, again, buttermilk is one of those magical ingredients that once you start using it, you're not going to want to stop. It's so versatile. It adds such an amazing flavor profile to everything you use it in. It's incredible. So I have 1 cup, 250 mils of buttermilk. And all we're going to do is we are going to add this directly into here, and we're going to stir it very gently, not to overwork our biscuits because we don't want to break up that butter. And then we're going to form them, we're going to fold them, and we're going to do a whole process here. So, into the dry goods goes the buttermilk. Put it all right in there. Now I just have a simple spatula, and we're just going to work this around. And again, just until all of that buttermilk works into that flour, and we have ourselves a nice dough. You don't want to overwork it. You don't want to get mad at it. You just want to incorporate it all together. And we're just going to keep stirring that around. Get all that deliciously semi-sour smelling buttermilk. Get all that flour worked in there. We're going to get that all going in there really nicely. So it takes a little bit of work. Of course, you want to scrape off your spatula. Get your fingers in there a little bit. And then we're just going to turn that over again. Get that wet side down the bottom just to get all that dry stuff off the bottom. And there we go. So at this point in time, your biscuit dough is done. You've made your biscuit dough. Now we actually have to get the actual biscuit making process down. So this is where things change a little bit. So we are going to grab a nice heavy rolling pin. Move this over to the side. Sorry, I also forgot to mention that our oven is preheated at 425 degrees. I'm going to bring over my flour here. Oh, that was a little loud. So we're going to take some of this all-purpose flour, and we're just going to put it down on our table, because this is where we're going to get our layers. So we're going to take this beautiful dough that we have that's all deliciously incorporated, and all that butter. We're going to make ourselves a nice little bowl, a little pile, some of that extra flour. And now, all we're going to do is we're making layers. So we're going to fold this at least 3 times. We're going to push for 5, or we'll settle for 3. So a little bit of flour down. Take your rolling pin. Very gently. Move your biscuit dough around. Now you're not looking for perfection. You don't need it to be a perfect sheet. You just need to move it around. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to fold it. Just like that. I'm going to take some flour, put it back down. Take this side. Over here. Again, flour. Turn this sideways. Back to our rolling pin. And we're going to roll these guys out again. Now, every time we build a layer by folding and rolling, we're building a layer inside that biscuit. So you'll see sometimes some incredible chefs on TV. We're actually going to do a little cheat. We're going to do a double fold on this one. And some of these chefs that you'll see on TV get the most insane biscuits. And these guys have been making biscuits for years. But this is how they get those crazy biscuits. Is you're folding and you're layering. And it's a French technique. It's called laminating. This is the same thing that happens when you make amazing croissants. Is you are basically just building layers. Now with croissants, it's rarely done by hand. Normally it's done by a sheeting machine. And the layers of butter are a little thicker than what I'm using here. So we're going to just do this guy. Fold it out here one more time like this. Then I think we're going to go for one more layer. So fold it one last time. Again, just kind of pick it up, a little flour back on your table, rotate it, set it down. Now this, we're not going to roll it out that much because we're going to cut them right away. We don't want them too thin when we cut. So I want to leave these about a ½ inch or so, which is about there. Now, I don't have a traditional biscuit cutter. I really wish I did. That's one of the things that's still on my list of things to get in life. But I do have a simple ring cut. So, again, size of biscuits depends on what you would like. I do recommend don't go too big. They will not lift in the right way. Don't go too small because they'll cook too fast. You have to find a really good meat center. I would really say no smaller than this, which, I don't know, that size. I'm not going to guess at it. And probably no bigger than about that big. You don't want them too big because they will not survive. So all we're going to do is we're going to take these, we're going to go, and now we're just going to cut. And we're going to take our little biscuits, and we're going to flip them so the flour side goes to the top. We want that moist, open top side on the bottom. Now, don't overcrowd your biscuits, and try not to touch the sides after you cut them, because that's where the air is going to get in, and that's how they're going to expand, and you don't want to kind of mess up the airflow. So we're just going to cut these really gently. We're going to get them onto our pan. And now probably my favorite thing about this recipe is the cook time. Now these beauties will only take about 10 minutes at 425 degrees. And when you think about it, there's not a lot of things you can do in 10 minutes. Never mind making fresh biscuits, or baking them at least. A little longer to make them, but baking doesn't take very long. So we're just going to cut the last of these. Get them onto our tray. Now, if you want, you can absolutely dress these with a little bit of butter on top. I'm not going to. I'm going to leave these guys pretty naked right here, and we're just going to let them go. So we've got that all sitting there. Now, these are just simply going to go into the oven at 425 degrees for 10 minutes. So here we go. So we should have some amazing biscuits in about 10 minutes. I'm going to set a timer. and we're gonna go for it. So, obviously I have some dough left over. If you want, you can take this dough and you can reform it, you can re-roll it, and you can cut another batch of biscuits. There is a disclaimer with that. Every biscuit that you cut out of the second batch of dough is not going to be nearly as good as the first batch. Because you're now reworking that dough and you're activating the gluten again, and you are refolding and you're kind of moving around those layers, you're not going to get the same product ultimately at the end. But again, what you do with that is up to you. For me, right now, this is just going to go into this bowl because I'm probably going to make something delicious out of that later, and maybe we'll throw something up on YouTube. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if the mood strikes me or not. So at this point in time, you've got a little bit of time to clean yourself up, get a couple of things squirreled away. Because really, you've got 10 minutes before you're going to eat. Because the best thing about these biscuits is that when they come out fresh, they're ready to go. Obviously, they're incredibly hot, but they're perfect. They're ready to go. You pull them apart. You can go to town on them. One of the beautiful things about this recipe is making them and then having them as a breakfast. Biscuits and jam, one of my personal favorite things. I love biscuits and jam, especially with homemade jam. Biscuits and gravy, doing a white gravy with sausage pieces in it are absolutely incredible. Using it as an alternative for Eggs Benedict to go a little bit more home style rather than using an English muffin. And heck, just using it as a sandwich or making as we're doing here, making a really nice soup and using it as an accompaniment. The biscuit is an incredibly versatile product to know how to make. It's unbelievably simple. A lot of people end up overcomplicating what a biscuit actually is. It doesn't have to be, it can be. There are some very complicated recipes out there, but it doesn't have to be. It can be very simple. It can be 6 ingredients and 10 minutes in an oven. That's all it needs to be. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. The one nice thing about that biscuit recipe is that you can add to it, you can modify it. One of my personal favorites, you add some shredded cheddar and a little bit of roasted, peeled, and diced up jalapenos. You got cheddar jalapeno biscuits. You can add Old Bay spice and a little bit of cheddar, and you've got Cheddar Bay biscuits, very close to the Red Lobster ones. I know a lot of people are a fan of those. And one of my personal favorites is utilizing it as a dessert piece. I worked in a restaurant once where we actually used it as a broken down strawberry shortcake, where we made a black pepper biscuit, opened it up, and and we also put a little bit of orange peel in with that black pepper, and then we had our tomato and our whipped cream and all kinds of stuff, and it was unbelievably good. So I've taken the lid off our soup. We have been simmering for a while, and this is where we're at. We're at a stage of this soup that you are absolutely ready to go to town on this. Now, it's not crazy thick. That's the one thing you're going to take away from this. A lot of people, when they see dill pickle soup or anything like that, they, people think thick. What this does is it gives that illusion of thickness with having the sour cream with the creaminess, but the broth is very light. Now, I'm just going to season check this, so that's why I have my spoon. I'm just going to take a quick little taste. And that doesn't need anything. So that's ready to go. We're ready to serve that. So at this point in time, we have 6 minutes until biscuits. So, hey everybody watching. How are you guys? How's it going tonight? Any questions for the chef? Because we got 6 minutes, so if you got any questions, please feel free. But while I do have everybody, next week, Tuesday and Thursday, we kicked off doing 2 cooking streams a week this week. The response has been amazing. Tuesday was absolutely incredible. Thank you everybody who came out for it. So we've decided to do 2 a week, and we're going to stick with it. We are going to change our start time though. Instead of 8 p.m. out, we're going to change it to an hour earlier at 7 p.m. Try to make it a little bit more accessible to everybody and get everybody a little bit more involved. So starting on Tuesday, 7 o'clock, we'll be back here doing the same thing, cooking twice a week. So, have any questions? 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 Yeah. Oh, also, if you happen to be turning into any of my gaming streams during the day, And if you're there early enough and you happen to hear some music over the stream starting soon display banner, that is a very good friend of mine. His name is Dave Johnson. His band is the Confucianaires. He has graciously allowed me to use his music on my streams. Please go check him out. He's got all his stuff is on Spotify. You can buy everything from him, I believe, through Bandcamp. Find him, look at all his stuff, listen to it. It's awesome, awesome, awesome music. Kind of dad surf rock. It's a lot of fun. Huge support for local music here in Edmonton. So give those guys a check out. Big props to Fat Dave and all the boys in the Confucianaires. Thank you so much for letting me use your music. It's amazing. Hope to share it with everybody. So, good stuff. So yeah, really, again, we're at the point now where once again I have failed to figure out how to fill time at the end of the day here. I did see at some point in time somebody did have something in the chat there about the carrots being purple and not orange. Originally, carrots were actually purple. It's through crossbreeding that they become orange, and the white ones as well. They're all the same genus. They just have to be different colors. You can find them at the farmers markets. A lot of other markets will carry them these days. They taste relatively the same. They just add a little bit of a color difference. I do find the purple ones to be just a touch sweeter, but not by any really large amount by any means. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I can't. Unfortunately, when doing the stream like this, I'm not. I can't keep track of the chat, so I don't know if anybody else asked anything else interesting tonight. But yeah, we're rolling. I'm just going to turn the light on here and we're going to see. Oh, okay. Nope, we're going to keep those a secret for now because I think you're going to be impressed because those are magical. Yeah, 3 minutes. Oh, 3 minutes. Woo, 3 minutes. Yeah, I don't know what else. I hope everybody's gearing up for a real good summer. If you got kids, hopefully their school year wasn't too super messed up. I know mine was. It was kind of all over the place. Hopefully they're done now and going to be even more in your hair and more annoying. And, you know, I don't know what else. Hopefully, I think during the summer, we're definitely going to focus on a lot more kind of family-friendly stuff. And really kind of try and shift the focus a little bit more over to that. Since obviously a lot more people will have most of the family around and we'll be, you know, maybe we'll get some barbecue stuff going. I know we definitely want to do a night where we do a bunch of appetizers and we do a bunch of pub food and all that kind of stuff. So once again, as always, if you want to see anything specifically on here or you have any ideas that you'd like to share with me, please find me on Twitter at Uncensored Chef with 2 F's. Please interact with me. Shoot me a picture if you make anything off the stream, or if you don't, just whatever you've made tonight. Or any day, really. I love food pictures. Send them my way. I'd love to see them. You know, I'd love to hear from you guys to find out where my viewers are coming from and kind of see what part of the world we're dealing with and where everybody's kind of fitting in on this. But yeah, no, it's, you know what, all I can really say is, you know, thank you everybody for being here and supporting. This is something that I'm very passionate about and something that I really enjoy doing and sharing with everybody that's viewing. I hope what we're doing here is at least entertaining, if not educational. And I hope you take something away from every time we do a stream on here, because I'm trying to share some insights into the world of cooking that you may or may not be familiar with. And hopefully it's something that's new to you that you can take and learn and grow with. And if it's not, if it's something you already knew, hopefully it gives you an inspiration to take that information and do something new with it and be creative. That's really all we're trying to drive here. So, we're into our last minute on our biscuits. So that means we can get ready to serve our soup. So I'm just going to give that the last little stir. Turn the heat all the way off. Now I'm going to grab my towel here. Now, I'm just going to take a peek. Alright, so when I said that these are very simple yet incredible biscuits, I want this to be the moniker of truth and the level of honesty that I'm setting with you guys. Okay? Alright, so here we go. So those beauties, after 10 minutes in the oven come out looking like that. Now, if you can't get excited about biscuits that look like that, you might be dead inside. Those are perfectly layered, toasty brown, buttery, pillowy soft. And I'm even we're gonna look at this one right up front here. And just look at this. Look at the layers. It just pulls right off the top. Look how beautiful that is. All of these are unbelievably perfectly cooked all the way to the center, as you can see on that one. They have layers. You can pull them apart. You can dip them. You can get right in there. So all we're going to do now is we're going to take a nice big ladle of this soup. Get all the goodies in the bottom. I'm going to take some of the broth right over top. Now, it's not a pretty soup, but boy, is it incredibly delicious. So that's what we have for you guys tonight. That's dill pickle soup. Those are buttermilk biscuits. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining me. I'm super excited to get in to eat this. I hope you give this a try. Once again, thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new to the channel, please hit the follow button. It helps me out a lot. It really shows a lot of support. Please come back on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the cooking. And I'm streaming games every Monday to Friday, so if that interests you as well, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm usually playing. So come and hang out. We can have a chat.
Can we get recipes?
Yes. So we're going to start posting recipes on the Uncensored Chef Facebook channel. That's right. I totally forgot. We started a Facebook page. Woo! Onto Facebook. Yay. So you can go onto Facebook. You can search Uncensored Chef. There's a phenomenal picture of a octopus carrying a couple of knives that's going to be staring you right in the face. That's what you're looking for. Join the page. I'm going to start posting these recipes on a regular basis there. I'm hoping to get back into cutting the videos down and posting them back up on YouTube as soon as I can. We're going to try and get all that stuff, but the recipes are coming to that page. So if that's what you're looking for, that's where they will be. You can also hit me up on Twitch, on Twitter. Send me a message. Give me your email. I will happily send you these recipes. And you know what? That's what we got for this evening. So I'm Scott. I am the Uncensored Chef. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me again tonight. Hopefully I will see everybody here on Tuesday. Now remember, 7 o'clock, 1 hour earlier than usual. Come on back and see us. Thank you so much for coming by. Have a great night, everybody.